very good evening and a warm welcome to Personal Finance. I'm Gugulethu Cele. Now today I'm joined in studio by Elize Giese, who's the Head of Investments for FNB Business, for advice on how small and medium businesses should be implementing long-term strategies to deal with challenges imposed by the ever-changing business environment we see here in South Africa. Good to have you with us today, Elize, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Just to touch on the major note when it comes to the macroeconomic environment in South Africa. As a financial journalist, we come to on a day-to-day impact and with regard to the terms regarding the sluggish economic growth, rising interest rates, and. But is 2016, from an overview point of view, expected to be a very difficult year for SMEs to navigate?
Look, I do think everyone is expecting it to be quite a tough year next year. But I think the most important thing is for business to plan ahead. So if you know that those things are happening in the economy, how can you best work with that in your business? So we often say to clients, especially with the rising interest rates at the moment, have some provisions available, start saving early so that you have money available if you go through the tough times.
Having said that, we did recently have the budget speech delivered by the Finance Minister, and again, not much reprieve delivered there to small businesses. But I take it all starts with having a plan and tracking the progress you have so far. How do we go about establishing that?
Absolutely. So, most people don't really like paying tax, but I think from a business perspective, at least it means your business is profitable. And a lot of the anxiety around the tax season is that people don't know what to expect and don't know where the money is going to come from to pay their tax. So that's why it's so important to plan ahead, get advice from a professional, a tax advisor, an accountant, and make sure that you regularly save for those tax provisions so that there isn't a big surprise and a big hole in your cash flow statement come time to pay your tax.
Speaking about taxes, I take it the biggest tax payments as well that are often made are to staff. Is there a way in order to best prepare for such expenses?
Well, if you know that you are planning to pay staff bonuses, for example, at the end of the year, we often tell clients to open an investment account, it's free, and to regularly pay into that so that you have the money available at the end of the year. It's also important to plan your cash flow. We've got online solutions like instant accounting and instant cash flow for our business clients at FNB, and that helps you plan your cash flow. So there you can see, if you have excess cash that you can start saving towards it. If you have a deficit in terms of cash flow, then you can start applying for overdrafts, for example. So I think it's a lot around understanding your business cash flow and planning accordingly.
How critical is cash flow, especially for SMEs? I take it that's their bloodline, right?
Absolutely, that's everything. And I think especially when businesses start their business or entrepreneurs start their business, they try and be all things to the business. So they may be an excellent marketing consultant, for example, but they don't necessarily know how to manage their cash. And it's difficult for them to understand that you need the expertise in certain areas. So tax is very complex, and it's worth getting advice and from your financials as well. So I think it's just important to know when to get the right advice so that you implement things efficiently on your business. So you obviously want to comply, but you obviously want to be efficient in a way that you do comply with legislation.
Elize, I'm a small business owner. I'm hearing you say bring a professional on board, someone to do my tax, someone to do my accounting, someone to do this and that and the other and provide HR advice. I'm thinking these people come with a price tag. How do I cope with those?
Yeah, so I think you need to try and obviously decide where you need it. I mean, there are lots of other tools available. As I said, we have our FNB Instant Accounting, which is an online tool, and that allows clients to prepare financial statements based on the transaction in your bank account. So it actually takes your bank account, analyzes it, and then gives you financial statements. It helps you with your VAT reporting to SARS, and it also helps you with your cash flow. So I think as much as it can be expensive, there are efficient ways in doing it, and there are lots of online tools available that you can use.
And I take it there's an opportunity to engage via e-chat services or the likes with an individual in the background.
And then obviously for more complex solution, such as tax, it's probably worth having a face-to-face conversation to make sure that you get the right advice for your business.
Exactly. What about, again, coming back to the tax implications, are there important elements to understand when it comes to tax exemptions for your particular company, especially given the varying sizes of SMEs?
I think the government has acknowledged that entrepreneurs and small businesses are very important to the economy, and therefore there are lots of exemptions and deductions in place for small businesses, such as your business travel or client entertainment can all be deducted as part of growing your business. And if you were to run your business from home, all those kind of business expenses that are linked to your house can also be deducted. So I think it's important to understand those things and make the best use of the exemptions that are in place for the small businesses.
Are there particular rules in place? I know that from a tax implication point of view, you need to measure the area that you actually use for your office space, and that's where things get tricky,
exactly.
Right?
So it is quite technical, and that's why you definitely want to make sure you comply and get those things right. But there are lots of tweaks and ways in which you can be more efficient in terms of tax. So that's why it's important to understand it well and to implement it correctly for your business.
Perfect. So I'm an entrepreneur, my business is booming, I've got the necessary cash flow. What about getting an extra bang for my buck? Is it advisable ever for small businesses to have investment accounts or savings accounts just in case things go wrong, or just to make sure that there's an additional buffer for growth?
We always advise clients to have investment accounts. So for in case something unexpected comes up, you suddenly a machine in your factory breaks, you want money available. As we said earlier, especially with the rising interest rates, you don't necessarily want to use debt because it's expensive, but also the more planned things. So if you pay VAT every second month, why don't you start saving every week towards that kind of expense? Or at the end of the year, if you do pay your salaries or your bonuses to your staff, it's worth saving early towards those things, so there isn't a big expense that you haven't foreseen and provided for at the end of the year.
So often when we do talk to individuals, though, still on the theme of investments and growth for businesses, we always talk about a particular analysis which is crafted for the individual. Would an investment account and investment strategy also differ from business to business?
So I think bigger businesses obviously have financial managers, and they understand their cash flow very well and provide accordingly. But for a small business, we always just say open an investment account. There's no cost associated, and just make sure that you regularly save towards it. You can also have. Some of our clients have multiple savings accounts, and they'll save for particular things because there's no monthly cost associated to it. There's almost no reason not to have it.
Exactly.
But you can save towards your refurbishment of your offices or for your employee bonus at the end of the year. So it's always good financial practice to have that in place, so that if these unforeseen things happen, that you do have funds available.
What about covering ourselves up when it comes to the tricky environment that we're going to experience, as well as companies needing to downsize? And from an SME perspective, I take it the obvious things to go are sometimes people or their salaries get cut. Is there a word of advice or additional savings that can be made to cover where shortfalls might appear?
Yeah, so I'm sure most people try and avoid downscaling on staff. Obviously, we all want to provide jobs to grow the economy, but lots of small businesses make use of consultants. So at least you use them while you have a project and while you need them, and then if you don't need them, at least that's an easy way of cutting that expense. So I think there are ways to manage it. Have shorter term contracts with people. And obviously consult HR professionals when you do need to unfortunately downsize.
What about debt? You alluded to it earlier on with regard to the rising interest rate cycle, but what is that good debt and bad debt for a business, and how best to settle it? Because we've got colleagues who might be photographers or bakers out there, but how do they need to manage that D word in particular?
Yes. So when interest rates increase, most people, get scared of debt because obviously becoming more expensive. And I think that's when you need to kind of manage your debt a little bit better. So it's very important to have the right debt for the right reason. So if you're buying a property, for example, or a new office space for your business, you need a property finance loan, which is structured specifically for that kind of thing. It's over a longer period, and it takes into account, exactly what debt you are managing. If it's just for cash flow reasons, an overdraft might be applicable. So I think it's very important to have the right debt for the right reasons, and then it could also be efficient in terms of your cash management in your business. The most important thing, I think, when you're trying to cut costs, is to pay off the most expensive debt first. So the one with the highest interest rate, try and settle that first, just so that you don't have that expensive expense every month.
Exactly. Well, let's get a quick recap of some of the key themes that we've highlighted in today's conversation. Elize, we've certainly said quite a bit for the viewers at home to take in, but if we had to do a quick reflection of some of the most important points, what do they entail?
I think the most important thing for business is to manage their cash flow and to stay very close to the cash flow of their business. Secondly, from a tax perspective, you need to comply. So you definitely don't want to spend your hard-earned money on fines and hefty bills from SARS.
Exactly.
But the important thing is to save towards these expenses. So we all know that tax needs to get paid and VAT, etc. So make sure that you have money available when those obligations become due.
And as you said at the top of the show, it all starts with a plan to monitor the progress as well as highlight significant plans going forward. How important is it to have that plan be able to adapt to a changing environment or even growth opportunities or being bought out? If that ever happens in your business.
And I think what you alluded to is so important, that plans change. So initially you may have a plan, but as your business grows, you need to adapt and you need to refresh your plan and make sure it's still applicable to your business. Now, I sat with a client the other day and we were talking about cash flow. As we know, it's so important to a business. And I asked him how he manages his cash flow. And he pointed to his order book. And you know, as much as it's great to understand what money is coming into your business, you also need to know what's going out and to be able to manage that. So I think for holistic financial planning is so important to a business.
Exactly. And obviously seeking the right advice, like you say, even if it does come at a cost, but weigh out the options available.
I think for the right reasons, it's worth the expense. So if it's something as complex as financial, setting up your business correctly, or something like tax, it's definitely worth getting a professional to make sure you do it right.
Perfect. And if all else fails, ask for the advice, and maybe there's online tools and individuals like yourself who are willing to assist.
Absolutely. We're always here to help.
Perfect. Elize, thank you so much for your time today. Greatly, greatly appreciated in providing some guidelines as to how SMEs and entrepreneurs can navigate the difficult macroeconomic conditions expected to be seen in the country. But that's where we leave it for Personal Finance tonight. A big thank you once more to Elize Giese, who is Head of Investments for FNB Business, for joining us tonight. Now remember that we'd love to hear from you, and you too can send us your comments and suggestions to @CNBC Africa using the hashtag Finance410 or to myself @Gugulethu. Until next time, have a wonderful evening.